Hello. Okay, so I'm on a walk right now, and I'm gonna take you with me as I go to the chiropractor's office. So this is your like in pocket Anson podcast type of thing. So the first thing I was thinking about is like how to make the documentary making process something that I enjoy. And I think my thinking around this replicates to many places, but I don't think I realized how much work was gonna go into it, which seems like an extremely obvious thing to everybody except for me. But A, I wouldn't have started otherwise, and B, I think it also evolved over time. So what I thought was like a documentary making process, which is just like film and edit, like from like an observer's perspective, has turned into somewhat of like a thesis on the history of climate change and how to build agentic and resilient societies. So like I am doing like the research now, I'm writing it, doing the fact checking, doing the like archival piece, like discovery and stuff like that. And like this is, and then in addition to that, also editing into a thing. So I think like framing it as I am writing a thesis rather than I'm editing a documentary will make me much more keen to work on it, because I think the frustration comes when there's a mismatch between expectation and of effort in and output exerted, or input exerted and output expected. So thinking about that. Also in terms of like the day-to-day work, just being like, yeah, like this is a fun thing. I get to design, I get to do crafts. So just framing it in the perspective of a work situation that is accurate and things that I would want to do anyways. So that's one thing about things, because I think that like I need to remember that this is everything that I wanted to do. Like this topic, this thesis, like it might just be my life's work in some ways. It's the thing that everything keeps revolving back to. I've literally had this idea and this thought since the 10th grade, and now I get to work on it. And it's like kind of like a dream come true, and I need to remember that. And I can't burn out doing this project because I got too much shit to say. I have too many opinions. So it has to be long, has to be good. So it's also really heartening. The book that we're reading in class, the author came in. Her name is Angela Carter. She wrote this book called Fossilize on 3 different Canadian provinces and their role as petrostates, essentially. And she said that they released this book in 2020, but she told her editor she would have a first copy by 2012. So obviously we're not doing that, because I think that for her book it made sense, but for this project it doesn't. But I think that like it's okay to not be moving fast and breaking things all the time. Like good things take time, and I think we saw that with Levers a little bit too, where sometimes it's just better to refine and to be really happy with the work that you put out, almost like closer to the craftsman rather than the sheer utility oriented bonk that I usually am. So that's how I'm thinking about things. Also on that book, it's a brilliant book. It's also a wonderful course because the professor is someone that just cares so much, and you can see it, it just oozes out of him. He sits there watching you talk in a very like neutral, like observational way, and you can tell that he just like so believes that he can learn something from everyone in the room, regardless of the fact that he has like 20 years of experience, he's written 8 books. Like I'm extremely impressed with him as an educator, and I like to emulate that in any future, just like educational experience. But yeah, the book talks about how the 3 different states, 3 different provinces, adopted a role as like commodity exporters within the Canadian economy because of their vast natural resources. So for Alberta and Saskatchewan, they produce wheat. Um, and as that went to bust, they switched to oil. Saskatchewan's much more invasive than otherwise because they had to frack to get what they wanted. And for Newfoundland, it was cod production until there was a moratorium and they switched to offshore oil and gas production. So I think throughout the book there's a couple things that I was really shocked by. The first of which is how much oil was presented and was truly like a miracle to these places. Like they in like in their deeply destitute state, oil was the thing that basically got them out of it. It like brought them out of debt. It helped them build up their like social services programs, and like it was truly like a remarkable thing for people. And I think that a lot of like activists forgo that or like fail to understand that. And then I think the other thing is that um, I was like alarmed at how resource cursed these situations seem to be. So right now it seems like a lot of central banks are doing financial analysis and saying that, you know what, like this industry is probably it's going to tend towards being unprofitable in like 50 years. And I think it's a bit of like a self-fulfilling prophecy if they indicate that, because then um, like a lot of the world operates based off of these predictions and analyses. But yeah, it brings us to one thing which people consider like the green paradox of like if you as a bank believe that you will have stranded assets, you will pull them out, but also the people with like infrastructure built up around these mines and the wells, you're gonna extract as much as you can just to like make sure it's out, and you're gonna try to sell it all early and like basically flood the market with your product, making oil super duper cheap ahead of like this green transition, which might not induce a green transition. So it's kind of this like weird like ecosystem equilibrium effect that will happen. And then the other thing is that um, with resource curse states, uh, oftentimes that means if you're an exporter, the currency is the your currency is lower. Um, like in China, it's basically like a 6-to-1 to the Canadian dollar, and that makes your exports much more favorable. And as you import more, um, the value of the currency increases, which makes it harder for you to export things. That transition state is just really difficult because you don't want to debilitate the economy, but you know you need to change into the new one. So lots of just econ-y type things. I don't know. It is just way too interesting for me. Like I think it's very hard for me to think about other things once my brain gets on this. So this whole class is a bit of a nerd's night because it takes up so much of my brain. It leaves very little room for much else. But I think it's really cool. Yeah. I don't know why I'm like not letting myself indulge in this as much as I want to. And I think it's because I know that it's kind of not a dead end, but it would be a dead end for me because I wouldn't want to go into academia and I like want to make things. So it's like I want these ideas so that I can use them in the world rather than having ideas to produce more ideas. And I think that's a distinction between even still like a lot of the people that are still my time ago. So like regardless of the things that they're interested in. Anyways, we're gonna have kickoff soon. Basically, our like 500-person dance party. I think it'll be really good. It'll be really large. Messaging a bunch of people for symposium venues right now to get that set up, and just all hands on deck. All hands on deck. And we're going at it. Okay, so that's my recording. That's my little blurb for today. Thank you for walking with me. Bye bye.